What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Uncle Stevie's Nephews podcast. It's currently April 25th. We're recording after today's game. The Mets ended up winning today 4-0. Both good defensively, actually on all three sides, defensively, offensively, pitching. Talon Walker was iffy at moments, but we'll get into all that. I'm going to talk about some storylines from this week, some defensive problems, Jacob deGrom's excellence, Francisco Lindor still kind of struggling, and some pitching updates that have been injured for a little bit. So this coming in after today's game, they are now 8-7. They had a week of 2-4 baseball, which is not what any of us expected. I think we were on a high from what they did a week ago, I guess. So the closest were me and Frank. We said 4-2. Spencer said 5-1. So if you just flip the numbers,
I meant to flip my numbers.
Yeah, exactly. If we just flipped our numbers, everything we would have been right. But obviously we weren't. The Mets had a disappointing week, all really because of what happened in Chicago. The Mets have never played well in Chicago sides in 2015 when they swept them there. The defense was really the main storyline. JD Davis made his return to the lineup. Has been hitting really well, and that's on display. But his defense, more specifically in the Cubs games, has been atrocious. He has no timing when it seems to throw to first base. He's starting to get a little bit more on the ball recently, like today's game he was able to, but his timing's still completely off. It came to a head specifically in the Cubs games where for 2 straight games, his defensive troubles, whether it be making an easy throw to first, trying to make a double play, anything like that, led to Talon Walker and David Peterson just completely collapsing as pitchers. I mean, they were going extremely well through the first 4 innings or first 3 innings, and then in the fourth for both of them, both the defense and you could blame it a little bit on the umpires, they collapsed. It was disappointing to see. And the thing with JD Davis, it's offense versus defense with him. His offense is outstanding. With the Mets lineup right now, he's one of the only players that is hot. But his defense is can be such a hard thing to swallow for, I'm sure, Luis Rojas and also fans. What do you guys think about JD Davis so far?
I think it was a lot more evident is the David Peterson one. I think that was the one that really was the backbreaker because Walker, I think it was the more problem was the walks, 6 walks and only 4 innings. Right? That was a problem. The umpire wasn't great. I'm one of the first people to say no umpire is horrible. I don't think the umpire was that bad in the Taijuan Walker game. You don't walk the pitcher with 2 outs. I know Jake Arrieta is an athlete. He can hit a little bit, but you don't walk Jake Arrieta with 2 outs. I don't care who you are. I don't care who the umpire is. That's like
another pitcher today.
Yeah, that's an absolute no-no. So I don't think it was as bad in the walk. But the David Pearson game, David Pearson was completely rolling. He wasn't walking anybody, wasn't getting hits. Once David Pearson's the kind of pitcher that once he's on a roll, you're good. And we've seen that before. Like he'll get bombed in the first inning, but once David Pearson, he's like Wheel. Once he gets in that groove, you're good. But he was not able to overcome those errors that JD Davis made. And what's unfortunate is that those are routine plays. Like those are plays that your starting third baseman should make. You shouldn't have to pick up the ball, double tap, double, clutch,
quadruple tap.
Yeah, now get rid of it. It's like 4 times. But you gotta get rid of that ball. So that definitely that can't happen. And like you said, it's so tough because that's not the only position that the Mets are dealing with. The offense argument. The same could be said in the outfield, whether that's Nimmo or Dom Smith. Obviously, Michael Conforto had a pretty crappy day on Saturday in the outfield as well. So you don't like to see that. That's in multiple positions, and you don't have a DH to bail you out. So, and like you said, a really good point, Brian, he's probably the only guy in the lineup that's hot right now because Brandon Nimmo is slowly coming back down to earth. So it's like you can't take that bat out of the lineup. Guillorme's been good, but when you saw Jay Davis hit that 2-run bomb in the first inning against Patrick Corbin, Luis Guillorme's not doing that. As much as I love Guillorme, that's not happening.
Yeah. It kind of sucks with J.D. Davis because, I've been rooting for him ever since he came from Houston for the Mets. He's a likable character. He's always positive. Never seen him getting mad at people or being a negative person. So it sucks when he's not really playing defensively on a major league level. He looks kind of like a collegiate ball player. He's messing up. And I know it's not his first position. I'll give him that. But at some point, where do you draw the line of, do we need to move him to a different position or do you need to figure out what's moving on here?
What I don't like, Spencer, is that the Mets experimented with him in left field. He was probably even worse there.
Yeah.
So like it gets to the point. It's like where realistically could you play him? You know what I mean? It's like, could he play first? I hope so. You know, like I don't even know if he could, but the problem is that we already have two first basemen. Like I want Dom at first. I want Pete at first. I got no room for a first baseman. You know, it's such a tough spot. And I do like that he's such a team friendly guy. Like, you know, he is like so willing to celebrate maybe more so than himself success, the success of others. Like you'll see JD Davis do a dance for a Pete Alonso home run, not for a JD Davis home run. You know, you can't really teach that. Like that's something that a player just has or doesn't have. He fits in so well just with the rest of these young guys.
It's just kind of lucky. His offense is really keeping him on the major league roster at this point. It is definitely not his defense playing.
The thing with JD Davis is in past years, his errors and mishaps at third base haven't been as apparent for me, at least as it has been this week. And I think one thing that you can take from that, and maybe I just haven't been watching as closely as I have been this year, even though I'm a pretty big Mets fan, so I watch all the time, is that I don't think it's going to be as bad as it has been, at least against the Cubs. I think whatever happened with the Cubs, it was in his head for sure. His timing is off, and I think that's something that when you keep doing it over and over again, it's going to start working. And one thing that you did see in the Cubs series, there was this one play where they had a perfect opportunity to get a double play, and it was like a routine double play, and you saw JD Davis like take his time getting the ball in, take his time making a somewhat good throw to second base, even though it wasn't really a good throw if you're being honest. And he just wanted to do something good defensively. And you can just see that it's so in his head right now that eventually he'll start to work his way out of it. And once he gets the confidence that he's going to be playing a lot of the time, and like he was on that injury and now he's back, and there's this whole thing with Luis Guillorme, once his hitting continues to prove itself and that he's becomes a formidable part of this lineup, I think his defense will come along with that. And it's just all about his confidence. And if he keeps playing well offensively as he is, I find it really hard to put Luis Guillorme back in. I know Luis Guillorme isn't terrible offensively, is probably very adequate offensively with his long at bats and things like that. It's just JD Davis is such an offensive plug for the Mets. I mean, he was batting fourth today and did extremely well. So it's a really tough situation. Like we said, defense also, Michael Conforto has, specifically Saturday, was not a good game for him. But throughout this whole season, and I thought I saw a stat about like since 2019, I don't know what the specific numbers were, but he has not been a really good defensive outfielder. And I guess he's never been a really good defensive outfielder, but it's been worse these past couple of years. And his throw to try and get Starlin Castro out at home was probably the worst moment for me, at least with his defense. I think the other one, it took a weird bounce in the outfield for him. And yeah, he should have been able to make it, but his throw home was just such a lollygag throw. There was nothing on it, and it was so disappointing. And Michael Conforto is supposed to be like the one outfielder somewhat in the Mets outfield that can actually do something. And the fact that through this whole year, he's been struggling offensively and defensively, like we're saying right now, is really bad. And we're going to talk about it later, Michael Conforto starting to come out of it, but his defense and offensive combination to start the season has been so bad and has really been a key storyline for the Mets so far. What do you guys think about how he's been defensively specifically?
He also had those bad throw against Colorado where, I mean, that was another one that was inaccurate. So like, which is weird because like you said, I feel like he's mostly a pretty good defensive outfield. Like I don't have all of his metrics on me and things like that, but I mean, he's better than Nemo. He's better than Dom Smith, and right field is his spot. You know, like we talk about, Nemo doesn't belong in center. Dom doesn't really belong in left. I mean, maybe you can make the case that Conforto belongs in left. That's where he came up, but I feel like he's been in right for a few years now. Yeah. That's probably where he should be. I mean, do you want to risk moving him back over there? Which you can on this team anyway. So like right field is going to be where he's going to be. So someone like Lindor, I think is a good example here where Lindor is also struggling offensively, but at least his defense for the most part has still been very good. He had a bad play against Chicago, but you don't want to see that be something where it affects you in both areas. And I really think that this contract thing, it might be just getting to him too much. I think that if Michael continues to struggle this much, if the Mets already gave him a pretty decent offer, I think he probably should just accept it and maybe just like kind of get it off his brain. because he knows that this is the thing about me with Michael is that not only do you want the Mets to maybe increase their offer, but you want to just increase your value elsewhere. If you could be like, okay, well, this other team offered me a ton of money, match it or pay me a little better or be pretty close to it. Since I've been with the Mets so long, I'll stay with you guys. But if you can't get another team to offer you a lot of money because of how poorly you're playing, why would the Mets increase their offer?
Yeah.
So I just think that it's a lot of pressure on him. And I think it's pretty interesting. This whole season has not been a good start for him. He really has got to get it going. And you know what? A good September, if that happens this year, that won't be enough for me because every single year, Michael Conforto has an amazing September. So if he has, let's say, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs by the time September rolls around, and then at the end of the year, he's got 30 home runs, 100 RBIs because of great September. Oh, look, he's a 30 home run, 100 RBI guy. But if he did offer me a September, I feel like those stats are kind of skewed.
It's true. Yeah, the thing that I was going to say is like I think Scott Boras could be a big problem for him because Scott Boras is a guy that wants to get so much money out of his players. And I'd be shocked if he wasn't in his head throughout the offseason saying we can get so much more money, just you have to have a good season, blah, 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 blah. And so far it hasn't been good. If his value, if anything, has gone down. And Scott Boras probably isn't happy. Michael Conforto's definitely not happy. And I'd say that Frank makes a good point that maybe he should just, accept whatever offer the Mets give him, maybe ask for like a tiny bit more, just do some bargaining. I don't know. But I mean, I think something's definitely in his head. We can just go into Michael Conforto offensively. So definitely a big storyline for the Mets since the beginning of the season. Michael Conforto has struggled tremendously. Just nothing good. Hadn't hit a home run till yesterday. I think it was like 80 games where he hadn't hit a home run, and it was going really bad. He had really bad at bats. Sometimes got the barrel on the ball and just would line out to someone, which has been a really big thing for the Mets this season. Constantly hitting balls hard and it going to the exact wrong spot in the outfield or in the infield. But either way, so as it stands right now, Michael Conforto is batting .214. Had his first home run, like I said, 15 strikeouts, 12 hits, 4 RBIs. So definitely not a good start to the season. I think we can all agree on that. But one thing that I did see, and I looked into it, is I think it's over the last 9 games, he's batting over 300. And we've seen little spurts here where not spurts, at bats here and there where he's been having good at bats, been making good contact. In the Cubs series, he almost had his first home run. There are a few times where he almost had his first home run and just missed it. And today, also, he almost had a home run, but just missed. Like, it's been happening for the Mets consistently. They just miss home runs. But either way, he's been batting over 300, has been getting extra base hits, has been hitting the ball hard. And you just start to see, and Keith Hernandez, I think it was talking about it. Ron Darling wasn't on the call today, right? Yeah. Keith Hernandez was talking about that he's having good at bats, specifically as Patrick Corbin. He's made good contact all day. And he had that double did it score a run? Was it just a double? Either way, it was a nice double. And it was really nice to see. And he had hard contact throughout the game. And like I said, he's batting over 300 in the past 9 games. And if you're someone that looks at trends, that's definitely a good trend for Conforto. You guys think he's going to break out of it anytime soon?
I personally hope so. I mean, I think he's got, like you said, little spurts, little at-bats every now and again. I mean, hopefully it's the same. I don't wish it's the same thing as JD Davis. But if he's not going to play well in defense, I hope he kills it on offense. He's batting 386. Like, I'm talking crazy numbers, big numbers, especially for a guy like Michael Conforto, Scooter. I honestly hope that he can get out of his spurt. Another positive guy on this team. I mean, not that there's many negative guys in the New York Mets, but for someone like that, you don't want to see what's potentially what we've seen in the offseason as a team leader that's not performing well. I wouldn't compare him to David Wright, but somewhere as close as you can get to David Wright without being David Wright. You want him to perform well.
They went out of the way last year, when the game was being protested and they canceled with the Marlins. The players pretty much alluded to the fact that Conforto was the captain of the team. And I just think that, if your captain, so to speak, were to walk away in free agency, that wouldn't be a good look. Maybe you can make the case that Lindor is maybe a captain now that Alonso's kind of the captain, deGrom. Like I don't, it's really hard to say. Now there isn't really that one clear cut guy like there was with David Wright. But the one stat that stands out to me about Michael Conforto, I have it right here, is that with the bases empty, he's batting 280, runners on 148. And that's the thing I constantly see with Michael. I tweet it every time, but when Conforto gets to him, I'm like, well, wasn't a runner in scoring position. It's so strange. But to your point, Brian, Wrigley just kicked the Mets' butt. I mean, that I swear I thought that was a home run that Conforto hit. I still think it was. It was over the yellow line, like in every ballpark. That's a home run. Get rid of those baskets. I mean, that place is just so tough. And you know, yeah, and what was good is that he was going to the opposite field, and that's really encouraging for Michael. I mean, all these hitters, they really got to use the opposite field more. I mean, the lefties have been pulling the outside pitch, ground balls to the right side. You know, Lindor has been ground balls galore. So these guys, and that's what Conforto did so well last year, was not get pull happy. That's why he batted over 300 in 2020. He used the opposite field so much, shortened up his swing. Only took a half swing just to get the single, just to get the double with runners on base. Michael was finally driving in when runners were on. And I hope he can get back to that approach. But, you know, we'll see. But it definitely is a bit of, hopefully a good trend. Average is getting up, getting a couple hits a game. You know, he hit the ball hard today. And like I said, he has great career numbers against Patrick Corbin, which probably goes into that mental aspect of it. You know, the fact that it's like, okay, I know I could do this. I fit Corbin well before I got this. Yeah. And maybe that like encouraged him, because we've said, you know, maybe a lot of his struggles could be mental with all the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, definitely true. Speaking of other people that are struggling, let's talk about Francisco Lindor. It's every game that I watch, I'm like, just break out of it so I don't have to keep hearing and seeing people tweeting about that he's a bust and it's typical Mets. Even if like this huge star went to the Mets, if Mike Trout went to the Mets, he'd suck it up. It's so frustrating. And he had that 3-hit game in Chicago where he hit his first home run. He's had hits in his past 2 games, but the thing that with his hits, not against the Cubs because he had his home run, but he really hasn't put like any extra base hits on the board. It's been singles here and there. The past 2 games have been just a ground ball through the infield that got to the outfield. And yeah, that's good for statistics, but that's not $340 million worth player, and 341, I'm sorry.
It's Tatis. That 1 million was big for him. Make sure you do not forget that.
Sorry, Francisco Lindor, if you're listening. If it's because his defense has been outstanding, he had another good play today, and that's one good thing that's not getting in his head. And like you just watch him, and there was the moment today where it was 3-1, I think, had that pop fly, and you saw frustration start to seep into him. And I'm sure he's been frustrated before, but he hasn't really shown it. And it's every time that he gets out, I'm constantly loading Twitter throughout the game, and every time he gets out, it's like tweet after tweet, he's a bust, or I open Instagram, he's a bust, waste of money, blah, 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 blah. And I just want him to break out of it so bad, probably even more than like I want Michael Conforto to break out of it, because I just don't want to hear this storyline anymore. And the thing that's true for a lot of teams is like when storylines become actual storylines for teams, it becomes a problem because it gets in their head. And the thing with Jacob deGrom, not scoring for Jacob deGrom, it seemed like it started to get into the player's head, and I don't want it to get into Francisco Lindor's head, and nor do I think it's going to, just because he seems like such a confident, go with the flow type guy, and he'll get into it when he does. But I don't want it to get to the point like we saw today where he starts to get frustrated, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It depends on the personality of a person. But if it starts to get into your head, like we've seen Michael Conforto in the past, where it really gets into his head, or even a better Steven Matz, when someone does something bad in the field, it got in his head tremendously and he just couldn't pitch. And I don't want that to be the problem with Francisco Lindor. But it's so hard to watch when he either grounds out, pops out, strikes out, because I know what's coming after the game, a constant storyline. He's a bust, a waste of money. And now I have to deal with him for 11 more years. What do you guys think?
I mean, I totally agree. It definitely is very frustrating. We talked last week about, and Lindor alluded to it, that one swing. He's a guy that said, if that one swing can help me break out of it. I was really hoping that when he got that one swing against Chicago, that was the swing. Now he's going to get going. Still hasn't looked like it.
Mhm.
And what I don't like about Francisco is that his outs aren't encouraging. You know, you talked about it's a pop up,
Mhm.
weak ground balls. I mean, a strikeout. You know, like there's not a big line drive. It wasn't hit to the wall and they caught it. They didn't make an amazing diving catch. He's just getting in bad luck. He's just hitting the ball weakly. And that outside corner, I'm telling you, he's pulling it to the second baseman every single time. I mean, has Lindor used opposite field at all this year? I mean, very little, if any. I mean, this guy, bases empty, 226, runner scoring position, 091. You know, he's had a lot of at bats. You know, it was unfortunate. Was that Thursday? The extra innings, Lindor comes up, great opportunity, and they walk him. Or, you know, the night before that, a bunch of guys on, Lindor doesn't get it done. Like, that's the 341 million. Like, those are the at bats where that's the guy that's worth. You know, he comes through in the big spot. And it's unfortunate because he is playing in such a tough place, you know, that as soon as you mess up, when you have that kind of money on you, the people are going to let you know. So it is a tough place. And like you said, I hope it does not affect him. I don't think it would affect him because I just think that this guy is so talented. He's better than this. I know he's better than this. And he really eventually has just got to get out of it. And I'm glad that's not affecting him defensively. I'm glad he still tries his best to take a leadership role. Every mound visit, he's out there on the mound trying to talk to the pitcher. He tries to calm Stroman down, you know, when he's checking the runner at second, you know, things like that. Translating for Miguel Castro when he's in a jam. That was nice to see because Miguel Castro and McCann kind of completely crossed up. McCann was like, I don't know if this guy heard what I said, but I was not looking for that slider. You know, so you hope that those little things like make the money, you know, more worth it. But he really has got to get, like you said, the extra base hits, those big hits. That's what people care about. It's a, you know, home run business. A lot of singles are going to be like, oh, that's not 341 million. You really got to do something amazing to really, you know, shut up the people. And it's going to take a lot, but I hope he could do it. And I think that after the first month, it's a little hard to call the guy a bust. I mean, let's see what happens in 11 years. Fingers crossed the Mets have at least one World Series under their belt, and we'll be okay.
I mean, I think it's just a tough pill to swallow for the Mets. It seems like there's a trend within this season, at least, where the Mets aren't stepping up to the bat offensively or defensively for expectations. And I think we've seen that throughout everybody. The pitching staff is the only thing that's kind of holding this team together right now and making it 8-7. We could have only had 2 wins so far if we didn't have any bullpen or rotation at all. I mean, it just, like, even with Michael Conforto, we're saying that he needs to accept the deal in order just to play. Lindor accept a crazy deal, and now he's looking like he can't play. So all this money involved with baseball, it's kind of messing with the Mets a little bit, and especially with the New York state of mind, like you said, where you're a bust automatically, or maybe you're the right thing for us for a couple weeks.
When Lindor was hitting home run after home run after home run spring training, what was your timeline, Brian? Was it extend Lindor or was it Lindor's a bust? I mean, Met fans, because we know they can switch so quick. It's really something else.
Yeah, no, I think, speaking of spring training, it was either Chili Davis or Luis Rojas was saying, like, he doesn't have the same approach that he had during spring training. I don't know what that approach is. I'm not like that intellectual baseball wise to pick up on approaches and things like that, but he seems to, I don't even know, but Chili Davis, someone knows that he's not doing the same approach, and I hope that becomes a fix that they can do. It'd be nice to see, but I was going to say something. Oh yeah, the thing about expectations and everything we've seen across baseball, specifically the NL East, a lot of teams aren't playing up to expectations. The Yankees across town, they put together a couple wins. They did lose today, but there's a lot of teams that aren't playing up to expectations, and there's 2 ways to look at that. First off, maybe the Mets will turn it around, or secondly, the Mets have a prime opportunity here to just pile up win after win and make such a huge distance between them and the Braves or the Phillies or the Nationals. And I don't know, I wish I could take the approach that this means that they're going to turn it around, but the other approach just seems like such a Mets way to look at it, a pessimistic way to look at it. Like, if the Mets were playing better, they would have such a huge distance between them and the Phillies, who are 500, or them and the Braves, who are below 500. But I guess you could take it the other way, that things are going to turn around. The Yankees aren't going to be as bad as they have been this whole season. The Braves definitely aren't going to be as bad as they have this whole season. And hopefully that's the same thing for the Mets. They're the only team in the NL East. Actually, I don't know if the Phillies won today, but they didn't win. Are they still playing? They lost. Okay, so the Mets are the only team in the NL East that are above 500.
The only NL East team that won today, the Braves lost both of their games, the doubleheader, got a 7-inning no-hitter from Bumgarner. Marlins lost, Phillies lost, Mets beat the Nationals. So they had as good a day as they could have today.
Doesn't count as a no-hitter though.
I know that's pretty unfortunate for Bumgarner.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, that was a nice gem for him.
Right. Yeah. So moving on, let's go into some positive things. Let's talk about Jacob deGrom. Every time he goes out, I'm just waiting for him to like become that not great pitcher. I think I talked about this last week, but every time he goes out, he does something incredible each time. And I was listening to Carden Roberts, and it was Carden was saying he's not going to have a good game today. There's like no way he can do this so many times in a row. And he goes out and has a better game than he has this whole season. 15 strikeouts in 9 innings, lowers his ERA to 0.31. I was watching that. In the beginning, I was listening to it because I was outside, but strikeout after strikeout, 2 strikeouts per inning for like the first 4 innings. Then he goes on another tear where it's 6 straight strikeouts and gets up to 15 by the, I think it was probably like the end of the 7th, because the last 2 innings, it wasn't strikeouts. He was more pitching to contact. I'm really happy that Luis Rojas kept him in. It would have been like a common thing that they would have taken him out because he was getting up there in pitch count. I think he ended the game above 110 pitches maybe. And that's, in today's game, not a lot of managers would have your pitcher go out there for that many. But Jacob deGrom is the guy that you can let go out there because he's your ace. If you have a guy that's absolutely demolishing the other team, you have to let him finish the job. I don't really care what the analytics say. I'm one of those people that sides with the analytics a lot, but it's Jacob deGrom. He's pitching outstanding. He's having an outstanding start to the year. You can't take this away from him, and I'm really happy Luis Rojas made the right decision there. It was just outstanding. And the one I forgot to tell you guys, but me and my brother bought tickets for the next Jacob deGrom start. So I'm very excited. That is Wednesday, so that should be very fun. My first game back at Citi Field for 2 years, it's going to be interesting, but I'm very excited. Yeah, what do you guys think so far about Jacob? Well, I know what you guys think, but what are your comments?
I mean, it has gone to the point now where you kind of run out of words. I mean, when you say ERA 0.31, how much more could you ask? I mean, the one thing that really stands out to me about Jacob deGrom this year compared to other years is just the length that he's going. I mean, the fact that deGrom went the 9 innings on Friday, obviously on opening day, I feel like he could have pitched longer. You know, it just seems like every start he's getting deeper into games than normal. And, you know, I never saw Tom Seaver pitch. So I asked my dad, I was like, you know, deGrom is pitching really good lately. How does he compare to Seaver? Because everyone says, you know, Seaver's the best of the franchise. You know, he is the franchise. And my dad said, you know what, deGrom is just as good as Seaver, but Seaver pretty much always would go like pretty much to the 9th inning. And it's a different game now, so pitchers don't really do that as much. But now deGrom is kind of doing that now, and his career ERA as a Met is below Seaver. I mean, and he's getting these kind of strikeouts, you know, leads the league in strikeouts. He's getting hits. He has an average over 500. He scores from second base. He fields his position. Gets his own run support. I mean, like, Nimmo drops a ball in center field. Doesn't bother deGrom. Gets him out anyway. Like, what can he do? I mean, like, I just don't even know what to say anymore because he's as close to perfect, especially on the other night, as you could possibly be. I mean, you literally cannot ask for more out of the guy. I mean, he doesn't do any craziness on Twitter. He doesn't throw the team under the bus when the manager's an idiot. I mean, this is just the constant professional. He's underpaid. You know, he's underpaid, and this guy is just so good.
There's really nothing more you could say. I mean, video game numbers right there. Like, someone's playing MLB The Show, and once he takes the controller off, we're screwed. Because then he's not going to be as good. And I hope no one ever unplugs it and never goes rest mode. The whole season, we're good.
I can't even do an MLB The Show what he does in real life. Like, it's impossible.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
What is, I haven't played this show. What is he like? I don't know if either of you, but what's like his fastest pitch? Like, does it go up to 101 in MLB?
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
It does. So I thought it was a pretty good thing. And his rating is 99, but I mean, at this point, like, he deserves to be in 100. That's not a thing, but it should be for him because he's been that good.
I posted on the Mets Universe Instagram the beginning of the season where the ESPN ranked Garrett Cole ahead of Jacob deGrom. And before those rankings came out, I was talking to my brother, like, are they really going to do it again this season where they rank Garrett Cole before Jacob deGrom? Because they constantly do it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's like a Yankee bias. I'm sure there's not. I don't know what it is. Garrett Cole's good. No questioning that. But Jacob deGrom has been outstanding. And yeah, he's been really good this year, probably his best that he's ever pitched, but he's been better than Garrett Cole the past few seasons. And I'm not going to get into a Yankees versus Mets thing because that's not what we really talk about here. But ESPN's got to show him some justice next season, especially if he pitches to a .31 ERA this season. All right, let's stay with the hot people or the people that are doing good, and then we'll somewhat end it with not a great thing. So let's talk about Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has played really well recently. I had his stats up. I must have closed it. I think he's batting currently.
I think it was 267.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yes, 267. Today had a great game. Worked out some walks. Had that absolute missile of a home run. The thing with Pete Alonso, and I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how in the beginning of the season, he started off not going after pitches in the dirt, not going after pitches that were high, staying in the strike zone. And he went away from that for a little bit, but it seems recently he's getting back to that and watching the ball, knowing when to swing, knowing when to not swing. We saw with his 2 walks today. And he when he gets on one, he can swing it out of the park. We saw against the Cubs, basically hit it out of the park twice. I'm not going to give him the second home run because it was like basically inside. It was still inside the stadium, but his first home run was a bomb. And I don't think it was 429 feet or whatever they said it was. But either way, he's been playing really well. I think he has, let me see, 5 home runs, leads the team. A team that hasn't been hitting home runs in all honesty, but that's not what we're talking about. 12 RBIs, has been playing outstanding. I think he's kind of going under the radar because the Mets have been struggling hitting wise, but he's slowly been inching his average back up. And if you're listening to this, averages in the beginning of the season don't mean a lot, so don't pay attention to it. Like, there's players that are batting under 200 and are definitely not players that bat under 200. I don't think Jeff McNeil's going to end the season batting under 200. A good game can take him back over 200. But either way, 267 is very good for right now. But his other stats, 16 hits, 12 RBIs, outstanding. And I'm really excited to see what he can do the rest of the season because we saw last season he struggled. It was only 60 games. But we saw last season he struggled. His approach at the plate was different than it was his rookie season, and maybe now he's starting to figure it out again. It would be really exciting to have Polar Bear Pete back in the lineup. What do you guys think of him in the number 2? I should have added that, but do you like it or not?
I think against the lefty it was okay, but I mean, I'm not sure if it's something you should always do. I think that once McNeil fully gets going, I really think Jeff is a great number 2 hitter. I think just the recipe of, Nimmo gets on, we know Nimmo's going to get on one way or another. And then McNeil is not going to strike out, so he's probably going to move Nimmo over in some kind of fashion. And then if you could set up, the Lindor, Alonso, Dom Conforto, JD, whatever combination, it should just lead to a lot of offense. So I think that Alonso is such a great power, like such unreal power. If you look at his analytics or whatever, his exit velocity, his hard hit percentage, the long, like everything is just through the roof, crazy high percentiles. So I think with Alonso, you want to try to get as many guys on as possible in front of him. This way, when he hits one of those polar bear bombs, you're getting extra runs out of it. You want to get Nimmo to score, McNeil to score, maybe even Lindor. So I kind of like him a little lower in the order. But I think in this particular lineup against the lefty, I think it worked out pretty well. I think he's a good guy. If he's swinging well, I think it's good to have him right by Lindor, because I think what happens is that if you have the guy batting in front of him in a 3-ball count, you're like, I probably got to throw this guy a strike because I do not want to face Alonso. I mean, they walked him twice today, so you don't want to face Alonso. And I think the guy behind him, that also helps him out because you know what? Maybe he had to pitch around Alonso. Said, let me get to the next guy instead. So if Alonso's swinging a hot bat, obviously he could help you out with what he does, but also he can help the guy in front of him, the guy behind him, because he just has that next level power that most players don't have. that is really just such a really fear for pitchers, because pitchers know that any mistake I make, like Corbin, he threw him one right down the middle in that at bat we hit the home run. If you do that and he hits it, if just when Alonso hits the ball, he gets just consistent, great exit velocity, something good is most likely happening for the Mets.
Yeah. I was gonna say the only reason I liked it is because how the Mets offense has been so far this season, and if Pete Alonso's like the only really hot player, like put him in the 2-hole. But once this team starts going, and I truly think they're going to, he shouldn't be a two hitter. But let's keep going. So Marcus Stroman did not pitch well in his last start. 8 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 innings pitched. His defense didn't help him out. The umpire didn't help him out. But the thing with Marcus Stroman is I feel like he's the type of player that can get in his head really a lot, and he strung together so many good starts. I don't want this one start to get in his head, and I don't think it's going to, because he has so much confidence in himself, and we saw that in the offseason. But I think his next start is very important, because if he has another bad start, I think that could really get in his head. But if he can get another start, I want him to completely wash this start out of his head. And I think he said that he was going to. I think most players would say that, but he didn't pitch well, and that we can all be honest about. You could blame the umpire as much as you want. You can blame the defense as much as you want, but he didn't pitch well. I don't know if there's a lot to say here, because I think he'll snap back out of it. But even though it was a bad game, his ERA is still 2.22. I know that it's because he started the season and had a 0.9 ERA, but still pitching really well. I think I saw a stat today. The Mets' top 3 pitchers, which is deGrom, Stroman, Walker, have a 1.94 ERA combined in all their 4 starts, which is extremely well for the beginning of your rotation. So yeah, the top of the rotation is going to have a game here and there where they don't pitch well, and I hope that's what it is for Marcus Stroman. It's just going to be one of those games, but I don't want it to get into his head, because I think it could get into his head if it starts to become a trend. So hoping for the best with that. Do you guys have any comments about it? No? Okay, moving on. So let's talk about some of the pitchers that may soon be making a return to the Mets. So I'm going to go through this. There's not a lot to say, because we kind of know what the impact of each of these players is going to be for the Mets, but we have Noah Syndergaard pitched, I think it was 1 inning, the alternate site, hit 97, is expected to return sometime in June. Then we have Carlos Carrasco, pitched 4 innings in the alternate site, is expected to come back in the second week of May, which is very close and should be really fun when he comes back, because since the offseason, obviously most Mets fans have, but I never really got to watch Carlos Carrasco when it was in the Indians, but I just, all the stories that I hear about him, how good he is, I want to see it on display. I'm not going to put too much pressure to excel right at the beginning, but I'm excited for that. We have Drew Smith, who today was called up to the Mets option to the alternate site. Probably I was seeing possibly later on this week could be called up to the Mets if all things go as they could be going, or hopefully are going to go. And Drew Smith would be a huge part of the bullpen for the Mets. I assume Jacob Barnes is the one that's going to go bye-bye. I don't think he has any options left, so I think they'll look for a trade. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm excited for when Drew Smith comes back, and also the next player, Seth Lugo, who's expected mid-May. He's going to be a huge part of this bullpen. And one thing that I did want to mention, I mean, so far, the past 2 weeks, this bullpen has looked very good. We saw with Edwin Diaz, I mean, I'm not going to really blame him for what happened in the bottom of the 10th, because he pitched well in the 9th, and the Mets should have scored and shouldn't have been what happened. But I'm not going to blame him. But other than that, the Mets bullpen has looked much better than it did in the first week of the season, which was just atrocious. But I'm starting to somewhat get some confidence in some of these players, and Jerry's Familia has even been pitching pretty well. I don't want to talk too positive, because we know what happens when that happens. They start playing bad. But Seth Lugo and Drew Smith could be a huge, huge addition. Obviously, Seth Lugo more than Drew Smith, but you never know with Drew Smith. He had a really good offseason, good spring. I'm excited. These aren't just like minor people that are coming back to the Mets. These are huge parts of the Mets that haven't been with them for the start of the season and they're 8-7 and now they're coming in and it's like you're making these big trades, but they've been on your team the whole time. They've just been injured. Do you guys have any comments on those players returning? I feel like we've talked about this past podcast.
I mean, Seth Lugo, he's like just so valuable. I mean, he's a guy that with that god awful extra innings rule, that's where I want Lugo, because I think Lugo is probably the only pitcher on this team that could get out of a runner at second, nobody out jam, because he just has such a good way of narrowing down, striking hitters out without walking them. I think with Diaz or Castro, these other guys, they have such crazy break that they could end up walking a batter or two and it becomes a bad inning. You know, Lugo's much more of a pinpoint pitcher guy. He's more of like a starting pitcher where he relies more on command than break, like the way Diaz and Castro do. So I think that's where Lugo serves a really good value, and just another guy could give you multiple innings when needed. You know, because if Miguel Castro has to get used every day and he's not available, you know, if you could go to Seth Lugo instead, that'd be really important. So stuff like that, it shouldn't go under the radar. And the fact that you could replace, like you said, a Jacob Barnes or Robert Gesellman with a Drew Smith or Seth Lugo, I mean, that's a pretty big upgrade. And if you get to the point where in the season you have the combination of, you have Diaz and Lugo and Loop, and then you throw in Castro, who's pitching well with May, you know, maybe Drew Smith, if you could bring Luke Casey in there, like all of a sudden, Mets have a good bullpen, which, I mean, it would be amazing if that actually happened one day. Mets have a good bullpen. So, I mean, you can only hope that that is the case. No one else gets hurt. But I'm pretty excited. The Lugo is just, I think he's so important for this team. And he really could just save you out of a lot of jams and really be such a difference maker in winning or losing. Getting him back would be awesome.
Yeah, I think huge additions. I was going to say something, but it slipped out of my head. Either way, that happens a lot with me. But let's go to the last topic. I think it's a Frank topic. So, Frank, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, I still, I mean, listen, I've liked Trevor Hildenberger. I love that he's a sneaky guy, gives you that submarine action. And I think a guy like that could be useful. I think when you're facing a pitcher, I don't know, like a deGrom or like a David Pearson or somebody, he's such a different pitcher that he could really throw you off, you know, because you face deGrom for a few at-bats, or you face somebody like Walker throwing really hard coming at you, and you're like, okay, now I'm kind of getting used to Walker. I know I got to look for that big fastball. Then all of a sudden, Hildenberger comes in and it gives you such a different look. That's what Tampa Bay likes to do. They like to try to give you different looks as a hitter so you don't get used to it. And Hildenberger is a guy that you use him in short spurts. You use him for a batter or two, maybe inning at most. That's it. You did your job, Hildenberger. Thank you. When Gesellman was doing bad on Wednesday after, you know, J.D. Davis and David Pearson, all this other stuff happened, you go to Hildenberger, he gets you out of the jam. Good. Then all of a sudden, Rojas keeps Hildenberger out there. I'm like, okay, whatever. Gets to 25 pitches. Hildenberger's starting to lose it a little bit. All right, now you should take him out. No, walk a few batters, leave him out there. Walks the bases loaded, leave him out there. Grand slam. Okay. Hildenberger continues to pitch some more. Now he's up over 40 pitches, and the guy is completely lost it. He doesn't have anything left. He's done. And then you send him down to the minor leagues because you made him throw too many pitches in one game. You know, it just like, it makes no sense. That like there's been multiple times this week where Rojas, it just seems like he had no feel for the guy. With Taijuan Walker, when he walked to Jake Arrieta with 2 outs, you're like, oh, he walked a pitcher. That's not good. Then he walked another guy. You say, oh, I mean, and he walked another guy before that. It's like, it looks like he's losing his command here. And then he walks another guy. You know what I mean? It's like, how much longer how much more damage needs to be done before you're like, you know, maybe I should probably take this guy out. So I just don't like the feel that I see from Luis Rojas far too often. A lot of times he just leaves the guy out there too long, or sometimes starting pitcher, he pulls him out too soon. He's gotten a little better than that. I think today, for example, I would have took Walker out when Schwarber came to the plate. You got Loop warming up, bring Loop in. I mean, the broadcast says it all the time. You know, they warm Loop up just to not use him when you have the lefty there. I mean, that's his job of the team. So, you know, I would have went to Loop, and then had I gone to Loop, I don't have Walker pitch that scoreless 7th inning. So, you know, sometimes it could work out, but I just like that. At least Sean Reed Foley pitched really good on Thursday. That was huge. And he's still on the team. You know, he didn't have to throw those pitches and then just get sent down. We don't see the guy again. Kushari Foley is another guy who pitched very well in 2020, had a good outing in spring training. When he got to pitch 1 inning, pitched well, he gets options to the minor leagues immediately. Why? You know, like, oh, we have to make sure that Jacob Barnes makes the team. We got to make sure Gesellman makes the team. We have to make sure Stephen Tarpley is on the team. We send down Joey Lucchesi. We don't have a 5th starter. I don't want Sean Reed Foley to be the 5th starter. I want Reed Foley to be the long man. I want to see Sean Reed Foley be a guy that if there's another bad start where, JD Davis or the umpire, whatever, my pitcher only went 3 innings, 4 innings, I could go to Sean Reed Foley for a couple innings. I don't have to use Miguel Castro for 20 pitches when I'm down 12 runs, and stuff and have Guillorme pitch, like stuff like that. It's just embarrassing. So I think that Rojas, that kind of stuff has got to be cleaned up.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times, specifically this season, where he doesn't seem to have a feel for his pitchers, how they're going. I mean, you could even go back to Jacob deGrom at 77 pitches when he was rolling and takes him out. I guess that's a frustrating part of a rookie man. He's not a rookie anymore, but manager that hasn't been doing it for a while, even though he was in the minors, but not at the professional level. So with that being said, that about wraps up this week's podcast. Thanks for listening. Actually, no, we got to do predictions. Hold on. I got to get up their schedule really quickly. So I know they're playing the Red Sox because I'm going to one of those games. No big deal.
By the way, brutal scheduling here. I mean, you have the off day on Monday and the off day on Thursday. What's that? I mean, how do you put your two off? Like, off days are so valuable in a 162. How do you put them that close together? Off day, play for 2 games, off day. I mean, that just made no sense. And playing in Colorado and Chicago in April, that made no sense either. You're bound for crappy weather. So the scheduling has not been good so far.
Yeah, definitely true. Some really interesting decisions that baseball made. But so they play the Red Sox 2 games, Phillies 3 times, Mets, I think, are 2-4 against the Phillies this season. Is that right?
No, they're 3 and.
What did I see then? It must have been a previous season. Yeah, they swept one of their doubleheaders too. So I don't know what.
Because they beat the Phillies to 3, and then the game got rained out, and then they won one of the 3. So they're probably
4-2.
4-2, I think, against Philadelphia.
Okay, so just switch the numbers around.
Yeah.
Okay. So Red Sox 2 games, Phillies 3 games. I'll give my prediction first. I'm not going to be as confident as I was last. Let's say 3-2. What do you guys think?
I'm trying to look at the matchups right now because I know deGrom is the Wednesday game.
Yeah.
So I think Friday Showman should pitch, right?
I think that would make sense.
I think so. I think because you have all these off days, everything is all messed up now. So I think Showman should pitch Friday. Then I'm guessing Peterson Saturday, Walker Sunday. I think that should be the matchup. And the problem is I don't know who the Phillies have out there because if I saw, Nola, if I saw Wheeler, then I'd have a much better inkling as to which way to go. But I guess it'd be. I really don't know. I'm actually going to go with the. I'm gonna go 3 well, no, it's not 3-3 though because it's 5 games.
Yeah.
So, oh god, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go the other way. I gotta go with the 3 and was it 3 and 4? Would that be it, or 2 and 4? I think it's 2 and 4, right? Yeah.
They play 5 games.
They play 5.
Yeah.
So 2 and 4 is not either. So what is it? Would it be 2 and 3? Would that be it?
Yeah.
Is that 5? Okay, 2 and 3. 2-game series are just so rare. It's such a weird thing.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna stay optimistic. Just as we all have different takes, we see what happens. I'm gonna go 4-1. I don't think they go undefeated. I think they either go under or at least undefeated against the Red Sox in the first series, and then take 2 for the Phillies, or somehow, some way they mix it up and they do terrible against the Red Sox, get mad about it, and then Phillies are done.
Okay.
I mean, I hope that they win these Red Sox games because the matchups are favorable. You know what I mean? You have David Pearson going up against Garrett Richards. That's a matchup that favors the Mets. And you have Jacob deGrom the next day. Anytime deGrom is not facing an ace, that should be Mets win with how good he's pitching. And that's far from the case. It's usually the other way around. It's like, oh, deGrom's pitching, well, Mets are going to lose. deGrom's going to pitch great, the Mets are going to lose. You know what I mean? So you really hope that, these kind of matchups, you really should win them. But I mean, with the Mets, I didn't feel good about today. I mean, the team looked horrible yesterday. I mean, really, really bad. And then today, they played great. So, and Friday looked great, but Saturday looked horrible. So, they're just so hard to predict. I mean, I don't think any of us will get a week correct, no matter what. I mean, we this week we have to get because we all pick something different. Yeah. So one of us have to be right this week. We have to, unless they go undefeated and don't win a game. I mean, one of us have to be right here.
I'm hoping Spencer's right for the Mets, but we'll end it here. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. Let's go Mets.